In March, I traveled to Southeast Asia to visit Cambodia. I saw things on that trip that changed me. I've seen poverty, but not like this. It's generational there. There's virtually no escaping it. There was this one day in this one place where this was almost overwhelming. And it was this town called Poi Phet. So these were dirt roads, too narrow for cars, lined with tents and shacks made of rotting wood and aluminum sheet metal and woven cloth and plastic tarps just put together everywhere. Many of the homes were about the size of a deer blind. The reason they were on these wooden stilts was because in the rainy season, all these slums flood. Elderly and children drowning in those floodwaters is a normal thing in Poi Phet. The people there were gracious enough to let me speak with them with an interpreter, and they even let me climb up the ladder to one of those stilt houses and just look and observe the way that they lived. And there was power there, but no AC, just enough for a little box fan to keep the air moving. But there was no restroom, no bath, no plumbing at all. The only thing they had was a clay pot where they kept the water that they would boil for parasites. There were children everywhere, just half-clothed, barefooted. The women were usually nursing a baby or pregnant, and the men were usually away working in Thailand, sometimes for weeks and weeks. Those men made an average of $2 a day. And I checked that. I asked over and over to make sure I heard that right. $2 a day is the average? Yeah, it's the average. And by the way, those stilt houses, the rent for those houses is $1.25 a day, and the water for the clay pot is 75 cents. That's all of their money. The smell that filled the smoky air was of burning trash and human feces and rotting dead fish. The nicest thing I saw there in the slums were these little spirit houses. They look almost like a fancy ornate mailbox, and almost every dwelling had one outside, and the people offered sacrifices like bananas and mangoes to their Buddhist ancestors. The religion in Cambodia is 98% Buddhist, 2% Islam, and less than 0.1% Christian. That means that the Christians in those slums are famished, impoverished, generationally oppressed, and vastly outnumbered in their faith by Buddhists. That is a big contrast to us in America. What hope do they have? After a little while, we arrived where we were going. I didn't know where we were going. I didn't know why they were leading me there. I didn't know why I was with them. I was just following. And then I saw it. It was a little, modest, lowly church in the middle of the slums, made of plaster and broken brick. And I immediately noticed there was no air conditioning. It was hot. It was full of kids, and they were learning the gospel. When I walked inside, the teacher assembled a small staff and the kids, and they asked me, they said, "We heard you're a musician from America. Can you play us a song?" I said, "Yeah, of course, of course." They handed me this old beat-up guitar, and I turned those old pegs and tuned those rusty strings. And I asked the teacher, I said, what would you like to hear? In her broken English, she said, "They don't know many songs in your language, but there is one. Can you play that song that says, 'I got the joy, 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 joy down in my heart'?" Yeah, I remember that song when I was a little boy in Sunday school. But I never really thought about those lyrics till that day. And I played and sang, and they sang back in unison voices, the top of their lungs, hands up, arms to the air, dancing and singing with smiles on their faces. "I got the joy, 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 joy down in my heart, down in my heart, down in my heart. I got the joy, 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 joy down in my heart." And then we got to the chorus, and it just broke me. "I'm so happy, so very happy. I've got the love of Jesus in my heart." 'Cause I'm so happy, 'cause I'm so happy. Jesus in my heart. Yes, I'm so happy, so very happy. I've got the love of Jesus in my heart. They sang and danced and laughed, and I knew right outside that door was the worst hell on earth I had ever seen. By the grace of God, those people counted it as joy. God, give us that perspective, that kind of childlike faith. When trials come, when we walk through the slums of our own lives, let us count it as joy, because that means we're learning how to rely on Jesus alone. Because as believers, our joy is not rooted in our ever-changing circumstances, but in the unchanging God who is at work in our suffering.